Iowa, potentially tampering with Alabama offensive lineman Kadyn Proctor. This to me is pretty dastardly. Let's pull it up right now. Mr. Proctor, talk to us, sir.
So Kadyn Proctor committed to Iowa last week, and this was him at the Iowa basketball game over the weekend in an interview talking about his commitment. So I'm just going to play what he said.
No bridges were burnt, you know what I'm saying? So that's why it was so easy for me to pick them when I did enter the transfer portal, because we still have those relationships. And even after I was doing bad in the ACC, and struggling, they hit me up and said, we're proud of you. You're going to get through this. And that's what ultimately helped me with my decision, because they still believed in me. It feels good, you know what I'm saying?
That's the point that matters. He basically said when he was struggling in the SEC, Iowa hit him up while he was struggling, which means that they hit him up while he was playing at Alabama, which by every definition is tampering.
Yes, this needs to be the new. You remember the paying players was the one thing that you couldn't do. It was the one NCAA cardinal sin. This needs to be the new cardinal sin of contacting players. Now, I don't know how you police it, and the NCAA can't police anything. But if you don't think that schools reached out to a certain guy that we've talked about a lot, his name's Nico. If you don't think schools reached out to him last year, you're crazy. I mean, I would have, because the NCAA has no teeth. If I'm a coach that has all that riding on me, I won't say I would have, because I like to think of myself as a moral person. I think 90% of the people would.
I mean,
yeah. So
I would, in the sense of outside of like steroids or putting things in your body, I'm not against breaking the rules if there's no punishments for it. Quite honestly, I mean, if the NCAA can't, how else are you going to compete? Look at Jim Harbaugh. Homeboy just won a national championship after getting suspended twice in a season.
Yeah, I think tampering is going to be a real issue with that sort of cash. I think where it's particularly distasteful is, let's say, lower level schools that can't match it, can't match that type of money. Like Tulane, Tennessee got a player from Tulane that may have an impact this season. I don't know that they reached out during the football season, but nothing would surprise me, especially with the calendar you've put on these coaches. It's absurd. So you're supposed to keep your guys. You're supposed to go get other guys. And at the same time, you're supposed to get ready for a bowl game. How in the world can you do that?
Okay, not to mention next year, you're going to have to be getting ready for playoff games weekly, because you'll have, if you're in the 12-team playoff, there's 4 games you might be getting ready for at different times. And you're telling me you have to get ready for 4 different playoff games while at the same time dealing with NIL and the transfer portal. Oh, and by the way, the early signing period is around that time too, just so y'all know. So you're right. It's crazy. Of course you're going to tamper. You're going to try to get these guys in the season because you won't have time in the transfer portal when it opens, particularly because, like you said, look, I'm actually going to break with you. I don't think this should really be a sin. I honestly, I don't think it's a big deal. Coaches are all the time in conversation with other teams when they're coaching at a school. They do that all the time. How many times have coaches been hired away when they were in conversation before they got hired away? Jim Harbaugh right now is in conversation with NFL teams, and he has been the whole time he was coaching at Michigan. I mean, this is a regular par for the course thing. On a just funny level, though, Iowa shows how outdated they are. Of all the things they were going to risk their trouble with, they were going to tamper. They were going to do it for an elite offensive lineman. Offensive line is not Iowa's weakness. Their lack of skill players are, but they're like, nope, we got to get better on that offensive line. The one thing we're good at.
Kirk Ferentz is just that type of coach. That doesn't surprise me. He would rather have 10 competent offensive linemen than 9 and 1 elite skill position players. That doesn't surprise me at all based off coaches I've talked to about Ferentz. I'm not saying it's right. It's not stupid. But so you're saying it's cool. So you're saying you would be totally cool with somebody reaching out to Nico. And it's so easy to do. It's so easy because you could reach out to the high school coach. You could reach out to somebody else. Listen, Nico, if he wasn't the mature young man, and I knew, even though I said from the get that Joe Milton was not the best answer for the majority of this season, and I will stand by that, and Tennessee would have won more games had they played Nico more and at certain times. I don't want to get belabored.
Okay.
I don't want to get belabored by that, but I believe that firmly. So if Nico believed that and everybody else on the team believed that, then you've got to wonder, why didn't Nico listen, or did he? My information tells me he never would have listened to that because he's a mature young man and way beyond his years. Again, guys, I can't tell you what a lock I think Nico is. And I'll tell you the truth. Sometimes you don't like to hear it. So I don't think he would have listened, but would Carson Beck have listened instead of sitting behind Stetson Bennett? Maybe.
The only regulation should be on.
He thinks he's way more talented than Stetson. Sorry, Q.
No, he does, but he was probably, like, let's be honest, Nico was probably promised already by Hypo. Like, I guarantee, Dave, this conversation happened in August, and you can tell him you don't know, you don't have a source, but how much would you bet this conversation happened? Josh Heupel talked to Nico in August and said, okay, you may not start this year, but you are 100% the starter going into 2024, and there won't even be a competition. The job is yours.
I think they probably had that conversation in recruiting.
I think so too. And I think Josh Heupel's been very clear from the start. The job is Nico. The job is Nico's after 2023. He's all but said it to Tennessee fans publicly, hasn't he? I mean, he can't, but in reality, do you think Jake Merklinger is going to split first team reps with Nico in the spring?
I do not.
Exactly. Nico's going to get all the reps. It's very clear who the starter is. Okay. There's not even a debate on this. And so for Nico, it would be like, what good is it for me to transfer when I'm already going to be the starter here and I'm in a better system with Josh Heupel? I don't really mind the tampering thing.
Maybe there should be an open tampering period, like in the middle of the season. You've got an off week where you can contact other teams' players. I'm only half joking.
I mean, that's not a crazy idea.
Not the most obscene thing.
But then you're really screwed depending on when your off week is. I mean,
that's right.
So
I don't have time to tamper this week because Alabama's on the schedule. What am I going to do?
I mean, you already have to recruit in the season. Unfortunately, you've always had to do that, right? I mean, even during Fulmer's era, didn't they have to do a lot of recruiting while the season was going on? A lot of times.
Oh, yeah. Philip Fulmer would leave the field at times during the Vanderbilt and Kentucky practices to go make phone calls. And I thought it was smart at the time, and I still think it's smart. Now, there were a couple of times that the game got a little bit close, but I don't think that was because of Philip Fulmer's focus on recruiting. I think that was because
the players didn't want to play the game.
Yeah, it's cold.
We
didn't want to be there as media members, and the press box is usually heated. Although one time at the University of Kentucky, this is how pathetic of a program that used to be. Some would argue still is. The entire glass in front of me, it was so cold outside, and with the heat blowing on it, the glass in the press box exploded right in front of me. The glass.
Oh my gosh.
I had to move.
That's dangerous.
Yes, it was dangerous. And I had just gotten up to go feed my fat face, or I would have been covered in glass. Yes.
Oh my gosh. So
that's your Wildcats, Kentucky fans.
Well, and also, as a reporter, you're probably, let's be honest, the last 2 weeks in November outside of Tennessee, those are some of the most exciting games in all of college football. That's rivalry week. Georgia, Auburn, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Auburn. You know what I mean? And you're having to sit there and cover Tennessee, Vanderbilt. I mean,
thank you. I've never said that publicly because it makes me sound like a whiny bee. But yes, there were other games I wanted to watch.